Please join me for Ask the Good Doctor, live today and every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central Standard Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bring your questions.
On my YouTube channel, And please, if you could, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yes. Ask the Good Doctor, LaJoyce Brookshire. Like, comment, and subscribe. Good afternoon, Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire here, and welcome to Ask the Good Doctor Live. We are here to help you attain, maintain, and reclaim your perfect health. So please tell everybody you know that Dr. Brookshire is live on YouTube. Bring your questions, grab your Good Doctor notebook, and follow me on Twitter at Ask the Good Doc, on Instagram and Facebook at Ask the Good Doctor. And yes, subscribe to that YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for being here. I am so delighted that you are. We are going to learn some viable, life-saving information today. Back with us for part 3 of this very important sustainable conversation are experts Carl Tutt, the CEO of Integrating Green Technologies, and Sterling Laylock, consultant for Integrating Green Technologies. And we are going to have a little chat, which is a great big chat that you'll find out about sick building syndrome and what it's all about. Hello, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am well, thank you. And I am really ready to dive in to this conversation. But first, I want to do just a bit of a recap of the conversation that we had last week, where we were talking about indoor air quality, as well as what needs to happen in schools as children re-enter those buildings. I had a lot of people contact me about what you were talking about in terms of sanitation, especially what's going to go on in the bathrooms with children, and not having toilet lids to close in bathrooms as we are in the middle of a pandemic. And your response was that peroxide, of course, kills the virus, as we know that. But the questions have arisen. How much peroxide should be used in the toilet for it to be disinfected?
So don't think about it like you're pouring Lysol into the toilet. Okay. Think about it as a spray situation. So
as a what kind of situation?
A spray. If you got a spray bottle, and they recommend that you do 1 part water, 1 part peroxide. So let's say you got a spray bottle, half water, half peroxide. When they're done going through the bathroom, just spray the inside of the toilet. You can spray, the liner and that kind of stuff, and just leave it basically, and it'll kill COVID. So we want to keep things as simple as possible.
Right. So to be clear, there is 1 gallon of water already in the toilet. And my thing is I'm always talking about peeing and pooping. People think I'm a little freak, but listen, you got to talk about the pee and the poop. All right.
Yeah,
so if you need to understand this, there's 1 gallon of water already in the toilet. And I always contend that if your pee cannot dilute 1 gallon of water, your health is in trouble. You are at risk. Your pee should not still be yellow and dark yellow after you have put it in 1 gallon of water. So since there's 1 gallon of water already in the base of the toilet, you're saying just spray some peroxide in there and that will suffice.
You would dilute the peroxide. So you just dilute a little bit because you're not just talking about the water that's in the toilet. You're talking about the lining around the toilet and the top seal. Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Now I see what you're saying.
I see where you're going, though. Go ahead, Sterling.
So we're talking about, of course, at a school, right? So that's a public bathroom. So,
that's right.
So the likelihood, which Carl was saying, to keep things simple. And the main reason is simpler is better because people will actually do it.
Yes.
But now let's say you're at home, right? So now at home, you still would spray the peroxide.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also take a cup of peroxide and pour it in the water.
Okay.
At home, you're much more likely to do that. But there's going to be no attendant or someone who's going to run in every time a person in the public bathroom,
Right.
That's right.
uses it. And just a word about the pee and poop. It is the centralizing system for a civilized society.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the root of all economic development.
Yes.
It is the root. If you want to, they talk about, banks redlining and not giving loans to certain places. If you want to control the economics of a society, just control the sewer system and make it difficult for people to connect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
So we're looking sometimes in the wrong direction. And this is why we have to have these discussions, because we don't even know, we take a shower, where the water goes. You ask people, well, where does it go? They say down the drain. And you say, okay, well, then what happens? They don't know.
True.
And we need to know.
Another conversation that we can have. So that's the rooter to the tutor.
Yeah.
Yes, the rooter to the tutor. Yes.
But that's why it has that cringe factor, because they don't want people to talk about it. They don't want people to discuss it. They just want people to know what's going on in the background. Now, in the beginning, all the water systems and everything were above ground. They weren't below the ground. So if it's out of sight, out of mind, no one's talking about it. You only know about it when it's not working or you don't have access to it.
That's right.
We don't talk about what they can't see.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So in this instance, in terms of our children returning to school, our children need to carry their own supply of peroxide in spray form in a bottle. $1, $1, $1.
That would be a good idea.
Good idea. But also you can have a school attendant, because you still have to have separation in the bathroom.
Oh, yes.
So it needs to be bathroom protocols during COVID.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, Lord. This keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker. When it comes to holding school districts accountable, you have sent a brilliant letter that the audience can request to send to their school districts to ask the pertinent questions about the sanitation, clean air, clean water, safety. Yes?
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
All right. So any of you who would like to have the letter, just contact me, Dr. Brookshire at Outlook.com. That's Dr. Brookshire at Outlook.com, and I'll be glad to forward the letter to you. Let's get on top of this. So we wanted to do that little recap from last week because there were so many questions about the peroxide and what to say to a school board or what to say to the superintendents of school districts. And now we have those answers. If you want the letter, it's a template. Craft it to you, Dr. Brookshire at Outlook.com. Thank you, gentlemen, for clearing that up. Now on to the matters of the day. We're going to have a little chat about sick building syndrome. I know you're saying, oh my goodness, what in the world is sick building syndrome? Is that even a thing? Well, yes, it is. And I want to show you this little video from this doc who defines it. He puts it where the goats can get it. And we're going to take a look at that right now.
With all the talk of Ebola, SARS, and swine flu, a much more stealthy and pervasive illness called SBS has spread rapidly, largely under the radar. SBS actually has a number of causes with a constellation of symptoms like fatigue, burning eyes, headaches, asthma-like wheezing, and gastrointestinal complaints. The course of the illness is all over the place, from mild and temporary to extreme and chronic. The World Health Organization has estimated that up to 1/3 of us are being exposed to this malady almost every day. To add to the frustration of this condition is the fact that it eludes specific diagnosis and treatment by the medical profession. Treatment costs billions of dollars annually, and preventive measures billions more. You're probably wondering what this dreaded health destroyer is. Well, SBS actually stands for Sick Building Syndrome. Probably the first big famous case of SBS was in 1976 when almost 200 American Legion convention attendees mysteriously fell ill with a serious flu-like symptom. After extensive medical investigation, it was finally determined that the culprit was a bacteria that was growing in the ventilation system of the hotel. They actually named the syndrome Legionnaire's disease. Since that time, it has been found that people who work in buildings as diverse as libraries, churches, office buildings, hospitals, and even their own homes experience a wide array of signs and symptoms. High-rise buildings seem to be particularly susceptible to SBS, and it has now been found that there are several causes for these complaints. Obviously, contaminated or unhealthy building materials like asbestos insulation, lead paint, lead water piping, and VOCs have been identified as dangerous and are aggressively being eliminated from existing structures, as well as being prohibited from new construction by code. One of the most common causes of SBS is the air we breathe in large commercial buildings. Faulty ventilation systems, carbon monoxide, infestation of bacteria, viruses, mold spores, secondhand smoke, dust, chemical fumes, and even pollens from certain indoor plants. Air pollution isn't just an outdoor problem anymore, particularly in buildings that are sealed or built over underground parking facilities. Another offender in SBS is noise pollution. Working in an environment with constant machine noise, loud music, phone conversation, traffic noise, you may think you get used to it, but it does exact a toll. Headaches, irritability, and fatigue are often the price. Many of us don't even know what the sound of quiet is like anymore. The modern workspace for many of us is a small, claustrophobic cubicle in front of one or two computer screens with artificial lighting. Some light is irritatingly bright, some under-illuminating, which can cause eye strain. Many authorities say it may even upset the normal circadian rhythm, thus affecting our sleep patterns. Those who travel extensively need to know that a commercial airliner has all the environmental pollutants of SBS crammed into a much smaller space. Lately, news makes cruise ships sound like floating petri dishes. Ever heard of travel fatigue or jet lag? There are now measures that can be taken to minimize the effects of buildings that are trying to make you sick. There are now high-capacity ventilation systems that exchange stale air for fresh much more efficiently. Air purifiers with ionic, ozone, and HEPA filters that remove pollutants. There are now lighting systems that are much closer to the natural spectrum and building materials that are resistant to bacteria and molds. Help stamp out SBS by washing your hands regularly. Get up and out several times a day. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it. If you'd like to receive weekly health videos like this one, head on over to youtube.com/sunwarriortribe and subscribe.
I love Dr. Weston. I love the Weston Institute that he's from. He said a mouthful. So, gentlemen, when we are talking about sick building syndrome in the face of a pandemic, how can we protect ourselves?
The main thing we can do is to do a proper assessment of where we are.
Yeah.
So what that might look like is on your HVAC systems. And we'll start at your house because, of course, if you go into a workplace or a commercial building, the systems might be a little different, but the principles are still the same. A lot of people ran out and they bought, HEPA filters, right?
Yeah.
A high efficiency, a particulate filter. But they did not check to see if their HVAC system at their home or in their office could handle that. So you can't find the book, of course, that came with the system, which is why they put that plate, they fixed that plate to the side. And anyone who's listening, who's unsure, they could take a photograph of that plate, send it in, and we'll tell them, yes, HEPA is okay. Or the other system right below HEPA is MERV, right? Maximum efficiency operation. And then we'll be able to tell you, you can go up to, MERV is typically between 1 and 16. So we can say, okay, well, you shouldn't go past MERV 13 or 14, because after that, your system's not strong enough to pull enough air to cause that to work. So that's one thing that you can do that's pretty simple, straightforward, and easy.
Oh, that sounds easy and simple.
Well, you take the picture.
Okay.
Send it in, and we'll look at it, and then we'll tell you where to look and tell you what filter your system is designed for.
I see. Okay. Who even knows How come they're not telling us these things? These are basically fundamental life things that we need to know to get along every day and to maintain perfect health. Yet no one's having this conversation. I've never heard about this stuff.
Well, it's because, let's say, the young people and a lot of adults, it's the football season just ended. Now, if their PlayStation 4 is not working, they're going to go on YouTube. They're going to look up videos. They're going to find out what's going on so they can get back in the fantasy football league. But if our systems in our home that have to do with plumbing or, the HVAC, the air, we're going to call a technician person. When the technician arrives, we'll have a tendency to let them in, make sure they're who they're supposed to be. And then we'll show them where the machine is. And then we'll leave. Mm-hmm. You paying them, stay there and ask questions because they will explain to you how it goes and what to look for. So a lot of these systems get put into buildings, but what you're talking about is the commissioning part, like the hand it over to the people. People get a new home or they move into a new home, whether it's a new construction or existing building, existing house, and they concentrating on decorating. They never really go and say, okay, well, what's going on with the plumbing? What's going on with the air? They hire a building inspector to make sure everything is working. But the problem is they don't really walk through to see how everything works. They just know if it's working properly or not.
And people don't realize that they can walk through with the inspector as they're doing that. It's allowed.
Right.
But we don't know what we're looking for. So what's the difference?
Because it's one thing I know for sure. Google, she's a girl and girls know everything. So if you just ask her, what should I look for in a home building inspection? And you'll get a list.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's come away from home for a minute. I want to save that till the end.
Okay.
I want to focus on these buildings that we're about to re-enter as the country begins to open up. And we tapped a little bit on that last time with talking about stagnant water in the pipes, Legionnaire's disease. Dr. Weston just spoke of that as well. But as we go back to where we work and eat and worship, what should we be aware of?
Well, the number one thing that should be happening is meetings should be held so everyone understands what has been done to prepare to come back and what kinds of things people need to focus on. And if they see something, they should say something and how that should work. We've got to have a conversation in there. And the elements of that conversation really should be discussed openly. But a lot of times, property management folk, employers, they're doing things behind the background, but they don't really expose everyone to it. They just say, well, everything's fine. We had experts come in, etc. But they don't spell out, we did this and it does that. We did this and it does that, etc. So it has to be a conversation. It has to be an onboarding. It's like a new beginning. It's like coming into that space for the first time because it's in fact a new space.
And it has to be ongoing communication. So you can't just be a meeting. There needs to also be updated writings because just like Sterling is saying, they're doing their work and they do very good work. I mean, they're engineers. They know the building. They're trained to do things properly in that building. But the one thing that's missing is how to communicate to others what they're doing. Okay. And so that's the piece that's usually missing in the process. That's where Sterling says they go through and they do their work and they say, okay, everything is fine. Well, I don't know what you did. So I like to have a little bit more information about what you did to tell me that everything is fine. So when I come in this building, I don't have anything to worry about.
So it's what you constitute as fine may not be what I constitute as fine. Correct. And you may just be skating by with minimum requirements.
Exactly.
One of the things, I want to run this by the two of you. The first time I got wind of sick building syndrome was after 9/11. My oldest and dearest friend from nursery school is an architect. and she said New York, especially Lower Manhattan, anywhere within a 10, like a 5 mile radius, or even maybe more, that was within a 5 mile radius of 9/11, it should probably be demolished, or it should certainly have such a deep and thorough cleaning that all of the ductwork needs to be made brand new. Would you agree with that assessment?
100%.
No question
Say
about
more. Say more.
It's like if you. I'm from New York, born and raised. Okay. When you go through, say, for example, one of the tunnels, the Holland Tunnel or Lincoln Tunnel,
Yeah.
you don't open the windows, right? And when you think about it, all of that debris, the stuff you can see and the stuff you cannot see.
Yes.
When we think about breathing, just like the systems in the building, we don't really know a lot about. We don't know a lot about our lungs. We don't know our skin is the biggest organ. But the ability of our body to take in all that air and filter it so we can use it, that's happening. It's still happening. You know, no one told, think about it. No one told people that you needed to wear a mask in Lower Manhattan in 9/11.
That's right.
And the number one rule was do not go there.
That's right.
That's what you do. So it is the political thing gets in there, and people will do patchwork, and then there won't be programs to onboard these businesses, because the reality is the public government side of things and the private business side of things cannot tackle these problems alone. They have to come together, because, and it's not always about money. Regulations, policies, balancing these things, and we see this now with COVID. And this is the way that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good Lord. So here are some of the telltale signs of sick building syndrome, and whether you can tell if you have succumb to any of these, and whether or not it has really become chronic with you. And they are skin problems, lesions on the skin, dry or itchy skin, nausea or vomiting, headaches, dry cough, fatigue. And these basically occur when you're in your sick building, but they don't occur when you're other places. That, I think, is the most telling of being able to discern if the building is sick or not. Because literally, it's like, you know, when you say this place is making me sick, it may really be the truth.
Mm-hmm. No, it is true. And we had, Sterling and I had a conversation in Chicago with some folks, and they were talking about how their building was affecting them physically. And how they were bringing that attention to the building engineers, saying something's not right. I'm not, you know, I don't feel right when I'm in this room, and it's almost like asthmatic type symptoms and things like that. And so, you know, they'll do things like, well, we'll just remove the rug, and maybe that'll help your symptoms, because in their mind, it can't be the building, because I'm running the building. So it's got to be something else in the room where you in, or there's something wrong with you. So we have to make sure that people can look all the way through to everything that could be taking place. And when many people, not just you, when others are having the same situation,
yes,
it's not you, it's the building. And so they have to take ownership of that and investigate to find out why people are having these types of situations.
This is where documentation becomes paramount, and paying attention to the signs from your body, paying attention to how you feel, not just overlooking things. And I'd say that society today, people are more accustomed to feeling badly than they are to feeling well. Just like Dr. Weston said, you don't even know what silence sounds like anymore. You're so accustomed to noises of the city that you have no idea. I have a friend who grew up in New York City who would come to visit me on weekends. And the first day he would have a hard time going to sleep because he said it was too quiet. He rose up the window, was screaming at the ducks in the creek, like, be quiet. Like the ducks were troubling him. But when you're from somewhere like a New York City, and when I teach my students, I can hear the garbage trucks on the street, even though they live in an apartment building that's a high rise, or I can hear horns honking on the street. And we think we become accustomed to that, but we really don't.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
The thing about it is, and you can tell, see, I get the opportunity to work with Carl a lot, and it's all the nonverbal. So I know to kind of drill into something when I look at his face. It's a very subtle thing. Most people can't recognize it. But when he was mentioning the folks who take up the rug, and then the facilities people say there's something wrong with you, they feel so many people feel so much better being at home all day working versus being back in their office, and then they can tell the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, then they can tell the difference. Here's the good news. In New York City, if you have more than one person in your office who are suffering from the same symptoms that you are, you can get workers' compensation for that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the state of New York, you can. Probably anywhere else. Yes, no, guys?
Well, typically those rules are run by the states.
Yes.
So states' rights. So you're going to have different versions of rules. I wouldn't say try that in Texas or South Carolina, but the biggest thing we have to be mindful of is think about your family, think about the people you love, think about the people you care about. Because a recent study by a psychologist, Dr. Paul Slovic at University of Oregon, has brought this back to light. This is a basic. If it's too big or too complicated and the numbers are too big, our brain gets lazy and then we're unable to convert any sort of empathy. That's why they keep telling us these statistics and how many in 1 in 500 got infected and this many people died. They call it it's a flawed arithmetic of compassion. That's what it's called.
Ooh, I love that.
Of compassion.
Yeah.
So now I never apologize, and I'm very adamant about things that jump out at me that specifically affect Black people. Mm-hmm. And one of them is when something really bad happens. You know how we'll get Megan's Law or the Amber Alert. When you look at the statistics of the number of laws that are associated, they're always associated with individual victims. It didn't say everybody who was in Megan's class in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
It is a significant disparity between white Americans and getting these laws named after their children and everyone else, especially Black people. And this is why we have to have these conversations, because we've got to zero in on somebody's grandma, somebody's daughter, someone's husband, wife, uncle, and think of it in those terms and forget about all those statistics, because it's 100% when it's you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, like the kids say, facts.
That's right. That's right.
Facts.
And I'm sure at this point in time, there's at least one person that you know, or that somebody that you know knows that has gone through a COVID experience. At least one.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get away from it at this point in time.
Yeah.
And so the closer it gets to you, the more serious you should be taking it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll remove ourselves from the facts when it gets too big or the number's too big, and then we'll just go by how we feel. But at that moment, and feelings pass and they change. You can feel 8,000 different ways in one day, and we really have to focus in and not be lazy and go by what our gut says, because it's not always going to be helpful to the student.
And we get that way around our family. That's outside of our household. But you got to realize, you don't know where they've been.
That's true.
So you have to be careful and stay on guard, and don't put yourself in a position where you feel bad about taking care of your household. It's your household.
That's
Okay?
right.
That's right.
You got to keep everything tight. Don't let anything come in that you believe should not come in. And when they do come in, you have precautions for when they come in.
That's right.
So it doesn't mean that just because you come in the house, okay, you can take your mask off now. No, keep your mask on.
Right.
Well, visitor, absolutely.
My
Shouldn't be having any visitors right now.
Right.
No.
My cousin said he was in town and he gonna stop by. I said, to do what?
Exactly.
What you gonna do here that you can't call me? We gotta get on a Zoom or Facebook or something because and I'm not being mean.
That's not being mean. If you're in nice weather, you go to the porch. Okay, you come to see me, to the porch.
Yeah.
Now, the World Health Organization released some health guidelines that I want to just share due to the outbreak, of course. And according to these instructions, health policies have been now adopted in the US and, of course, around the world. And one of the most common policies of all the countries was to announce a general quarantine and a stay-at-home policy. Yes. So check this. This policy, with all of its advantages of controlling COVID, carries individual and environmental risks from the outdoor environment to homes and indoor environments so that people may inadvertently be exposed to causes of the sick building syndrome. And these new findings of the researchers find that air pollution indicates that there's a significant relationship between the prevalence of COVID and outdoor air pollution reduction because, of course, the decrease of transportation. But however, the policy of quarantine to stay at home may lead to an increase in indoor air pollution because of more activity like cooking and office work and due to telecommuting and using a printer at home. And because now indoor air quality has been reported that the quality of buildings has declined because people are cooking more at home, and especially in rural areas like mine where it's colder and doors may not be open. However, I open my doors every day. But I found that fascinating. And of course, during this time, the use of disinfectants, especially chlorine-based disinfectants, are dramatically, basically infecting or fumigating our indoor spaces and governments and privates and businesses in an effort to keep COVID at bay. But the exposure of what that's doing to our body is really, it's killing us.
It is.
I found that fascinating.
And that means that we have to start to change the way we do things.
No doubt.
You know, we talk about HVACs, and Sterling talked about HVACs and the HEPA filter and the MERS filter. And that's good. We still want to do those things. But if you notice, HVACs don't talk about bringing fresh air in. And in the video that you showed, he talked a little bit about we need to do more of that. So let's take your example right now. So it's 8 degrees in Chicago. You're not opening no doors. You're not opening no windows. Okay. And then you want to clean the house and you want to cook fried chicken. So you got all these different things, dynamics taking place.
That's right.
And the HVAC system cannot flow that out like you would want it to. It doesn't create a fresh air experience to flow that out. So that's why after you cook fried chicken, it's still lingering when you go to bed at night.
And have mercy if you want to press that hair, perm that hair, or blow dry that hair.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. And so there has to be new mechanisms put in place, whether it's with HVACs or something else in between, because that's what we normally do. We have to have something in between until we get to the final solution that can bring fresh air in on a regular basis into your home or in wherever you're staying or working.
Now, in the home, well, I want to go back to the building for just a second. When you find out, or when a building has been classified as being sick or having sick building syndrome, what then should be changed out? Or, I mean, are we talking about changing flooring? Are we talking about taking out drywall, replacing entire HVACs? What are the ABC 1, 2, 3s of it all?
It's
Well,
actually A through Z and numbers into this track. Because it could be anything. Like, for example, let's say in Chicago public schools, average building is 80 years old. So if you even start working on anything behind the wall in that building, it's gonna have asbestos.
Yes.
And that's really bad stuff, right? Then you're gonna have situations where it could just be the materials, but a lot of times it could be, the flooring, like in a hospital. They use vinyl flooring to keep it easy to clean and sanitize, but now the glue,
yes,
chemicals in the vinyl are right.
Yes,
they're coming into the atmosphere all the time, right?
Yeah.
Which is called off-gassing, right? And if you do just some basic cursory research, you'll find that hospital workers are in the top category for respiratory disease.
No doubt.
So they spend so many hours there. And of course, and then there's the cleaners on top of that to keep it clean. So we have to look at how to take bad chemicals out. And we have to think about these things when we decide we're going to even go into a space. Because we've talked to folks throughout all of this just to see how they're thinking. And if they could simplify it down to one thing or two things, that's what they'll do. And then all these other things are blind spots behind them. And they're sometimes going into new spaces that are problematic before they even begin because they didn't ask the right questions.
That's right. Well, when we come back, I want you to talk about the questions that we need to ask, and we're going to attack some of the questions right here. One thing I want to say is when you talk about we need to get away from all of that toxic stuff, our show next week is going to have Dr. Tamara Combs-Williams, who is our toxic doc, and she's going to have a conversation about diminishing toxicity in your home and business. So tune in next week for sure, but don't go away. We're going to be back to answer your questions right after this message.
We have the power to heal. Our bodies have the power to do exactly what it was created to do. All we have to do is give it what it needs.
You can't tell me that there is a community with more ingenuity and innovation and talent. Can't make me believe it. I know it. I've seen it.
Very, very challenging, but yet fun. I had a great time, as you can see. So this is a great workout for me. Awesome, Dr. LaJoyce.
Okay, Dante.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
It was amazing.
See what can happen when people inspire you? Inspire someone you know.
Foundationally speaking, you really need to know your network. Because I mean, if you don't track it, then you don't know where you're at and where you'd like to be.
My entire life, I've seen what our generations have had to come down and go through and still have been able to make it. I don't believe that anybody else would have made it through what we've made.
You got to bring the best person I know, folks that come to educate through the training. She teaches, she cares. Phenomenal folks.
But if you've been listening to Dr. Brookshire, I'm sure you've heard a lot about detoxification.
There's really a water crisis out there, and a lot of people are not educated. A lot of people actually really dying from just drinking their local tap water.
just want to thank everybody for coming out.
I was grateful when LaJoyce asked that I could come and talk to you guys. We've had one session. I don't believe I traumatized you guys too bad.
Dr. Brookshire, thank you so much for this weekend.
Oh, that's the Wellness Warriors Weekend Getaway from 2019. We just wanted to show you a little clip about how much fun we had. We want to show you that up close and personal. If you'd like to be there with us, send me an email at drbrookshire@outlook.com. Now to our questions. We have got Not Manny, who says, how do you test for sick building syndrome?
There are a number of tests that you can do, but one of the things that's easiest to do is to simply have an indoor air quality monitor, even if it's just a residential grade device. They're going to range between $100 and $200. These days, I wouldn't leave home without it. Everywhere I go, I would turn it on. And then you'll know what the temperature is, the humidity, particulate matter in the air, CO2, and then there are others that will detect airborne chemicals as well. It does not detect the COVID virus, but if you know that the temperature is somewhere around 72 degrees, 68 degrees inside, and then the relative humidity is between 30% and 60%, that's the band at which the COVID virus has a difficulty surviving.
And we can increase our humidity within our space by using a humidifier because COVID really struggles in humid environments as well, yes?
It depends. And the reason it depends is because, you know, we've got all the different climate bands in the country. So if you're in, say you're in Chicago, I mean, it's relatively dry unless it just rained. It's relatively dry air. If you're in Florida, it's going to be humid air. But the key to the whole thing is how many times can your HVAC system change out that air in an hour? And it's just called air changes per hour. Right? So
this makes a good case for air purification, not air filtration, like a Volara air filter. And we'll have that in the comments below. Right?
Air purification is a broad topic, and people are interchanging the terms. But if we look at an air purifier, it's going to filter that air and trap whatever it is. Doesn't necessarily kill it, it's going to trap it. Then you have some air purifiers that also produce and can emit ions, and ions are what happens when it rains, etc. So, you know, we really have to look at the two parts of it is filtering and cleaning the air. And really you need both. And if you filter air, you want it to exhaust, like your dryer at your house. You know, that has that hose that goes to the vent that goes outside. Really, if you're doing an air purifier properly and you're in a space that's not vented or without a window, that's what you really want to have an air purifier where you could do that, where you could have like an exhaust to it.
Yara 67 says, one of the things that happened to a coworker who was responsible for cleaning out a room, he ended up having a brain infection from inhaling the bugs in the document room and the dust, I'm sure.
Yes, that's because if you are not trained, you know, you really need OSHA training to do these kinds of cleanings. And as Carl talks about this all the time, especially in the school, you're going to have an air purifier. How do you know when to change the filter? Who's going to do that? They have to be masked up. They have to be trained properly to do that, right? So, you know, I think Carl should talk a bit more about that because people sort of gloss over it. And then when the time comes, they remember bits and pieces.
Okay. Come on, Carl.
You talk about OSHA. So every commercial establishment is supposed to have an OSHA book in their location that talks about all the different aspects of OSHA, what the do's and don'ts and so forth.
Can you please break down that acronym, please?
So
It's
let's go to the
occupational safety, health.
It's occupational
safety, health.
Something safety
Yeah,
administration.
I have to look it up for you.
It's administration.
But
Yeah,
this makes a good case for asking the question, who you gonna call? You're gonna call OSHA. Because if your employer is asking you to do something, especially on the cleaning vein for which you're not equipped, that could eventually get you sick, and then they're no longer liable, but they've asked you to do it, but you're trying to be in compliant with what your manager or your supervisor is requesting, who you gonna call? You gotta call OSHA.
That's correct.
Let's say if there's a major renovation of a building, and let's say we're involved in it and we're doing something, say with an ionization system, and we want to go check how things are coming along. Well, we have to have OSHA clearance to be able to do that. You know, you can't just walk into these environments and, okay, there's a book, but who's going to read all these books, all these manuals? Right. So there is signage that should be up. You see it in the break room when you go to any employer.
Every place
when they inspect, that's the first thing they're looking for. Are you looking? But people will look at it and they see it so much, they never really. I'm a person that reads the emergency pamphlet on the airplane every time.
Every time.
And, you know, when they give the instructions, people sit there, you know, they look down. I pull the thing out, and that's the first thing I do every time because the planes are different. You know, they say check in front of you, check behind you. But you got, it's a little map. Just look at it and in 5 minutes, and you know what's going on.
That's right.
Okay, now you said there are questions that we need to ask. What are those questions? When we are called to come back to work, what are the first questions that we should be asking?
Well, it depends on if you're going to ask these questions identified as who you are, or if there is a mechanism to ask questions anonymously. That's the first thing. You really want to be able to.
Why?
Well, you know, people get uptight when you start asking questions. They get uptight. They do.
It's personal.
They take it, they take it personal, especially with the territorial nature of people who operate and maintain buildings. You know, if let's say they're over the boiler system or the HVAC, emotionally, it's theirs. It's not
their baby. It's their baby.
Right, it's theirs.
I've been nursing it for X amount of years.
Now, especially in Chicago, in the city, you go to certain facilities, and it might be only one person that has the key to get into that facility. And the reason they do that is for job security, union business, and being able to get overtime, because they might live in the suburbs, and then when something goes on, you got to call them, right? And then they got to come in, nobody can get in. And, you know, if it's emergency, of course, the fire department going to bang it. I mean, they're going to just blast the door down and do what they got to do. But anything else, you got to go get that person with the key.
So I'm sick of the games people play at the expense of our health. That's what I'm sick of.
Yeah.
Which is why I want us to have this conversation today. So the first set of questions that we need to be asking upon re-entry to our work buildings, anonymously or not anonymously, what should they be?
Number one, if anything that I experience doesn't seem like that's what it should be, who do I call? What do I do? How do I take action?
Okay.
So you have to be more observant. So it's not just you coming into the building. You have to start to be more knowledgeable and more observant and start paying attention to things that you didn't pay attention to before.
Yes, sir.
You know, for folks like us, like Sterling and I, we think about it in a couple of ways. So we break down the building into two different areas, because there's the building. So that's the sustainable facilities operation. But then you also have the behaviors inside the building. So you have to talk about the behavioral aspects and the environmental aspects of the building. And so it's two different sets of questions that you would have based on what area you want to focus on. So if you're on the inside, on just the building itself, the sustainable operational aspect of the building, you want to know what changes did you make to increase airflow.
That's the question. What changes did you make to increase airflow?
Yes, because we know COVID is airborne.
All right.
Particulate. So we want to know, what did you do? What things did you put in place to move the air in my airspace so I know I'm in a safer airspace? That's like one of the first things you think about.
Did you flush the pipes? Did you flush the plumbing pipes?
Yeah.
And
what did you say about flushing?
Did you flush all the plumbing? Did you turn on all the water, flush all the toilets, and turn on all the water, all the sinks, and flush all the plumbing pipes? When did you do it, and when are you planning to do it again?
Right. So when I want to make that pot of coffee, is that water good? It's just simple stuff. It's simple stuff.
If I look up, do I see stains in the drop ceiling? Do I see any stains? You see that. That's an indication of a problem.
All right.
So these are just some of the things on the building side. Now get into the behavioral side. Did you change the way your maintenance cleans? Did you change any products in the way your maintenance uses chemicals? You want to know those things because those are things that linger in the air. So let's say they come in and they clean at night. So in an office building, they're not cleaning during the day because you're there. They're cleaning at night. So what are they using? How long does that chemical stay in the air? So when you come in the next day, you're not trying to be, Pie-Sol clean. You don't want to smell that. You want everything to be neutral. You don't want any odor whatsoever. So what are they using? And how often are they coming in to clean? Because now you have some situations. I talked to some of the maintenance guys. They're cleaning twice a day.
All right. This is an excellent place to start. Actually, these are things that you would want to know about actually before you actually went back to work. These are good things. These are good negotiables.
Yep.
They're excellent negotiables because we don't want to come back to work and then risk our health because we quarantined and made it through safely. Some of us have made it through safely, thank God. The last thing we want to do is subject ourselves to something like a Legionnaire's disease that's floating about. Now there's this safe health check. The safe health check. Tell us about that.
The Well Health and Safety was a task force designed by the International Well Building Institute. So they are leaders worldwide in healthy buildings because there's so that's the answer to sick building syndrome. That's healthy buildings. So just last evening, well, in the middle of the night because of the 12-hour time change, I was in Asia, and there was an entire training presentation on it. And Well is not the only one with a health and safety regimen. There are others. This one was done by United Laboratories, so they have their own. And basically, it covers the areas we're talking about: cleaning and sanitization, stakeholder engagement. What happens? What are the health and mental health support systems? What's up with the air? What's up with the water? So practitioners like us come in and do the assessment. And then in the Well Health and Safety, there are 17 or actually 15 categories you can choose from, right? To say how you're going to deal with your space, how you're going to deal with your building. So Yankee Stadium, all of the JP Morgan Chase buildings worldwide, all these folks are doing it. So now when you go to a business, you can look for the Well Health and Safety seal on the door of that business. And that will give you a big indication that things have happened at this space.
That's very important because if we don't see the Well Health Safety, can we assume that A, they didn't bother to get it? Can we assume B, that they failed the check? What are we to do? Should every building be striving for a Well Health Safety seal?
We believe absolutely yes.
Yes.
So just like I was talking about United Laboratories, I think the headquarters is Chicago. They have theirs, and some of our colleagues were actually doing the presentation, and it was done by the Singapore Green Building Council all the way in Southeast Asia. So UL is UL verified healthy building. So they have a sticker. And then there are others. And there's no perfect one, but not having one is problematic. And then there is International Living Futures that has the Living Building Challenge. So this whole people inside the building is very significant now. It's not just energy efficiency. It's not just water conservation. It's healthy driving, healthy building adoption. And the main thing it does is to identify the corrective action steps you can take after you do that assessment. You implement certain things, and then that becomes a starting point. And then there's a trigger point at which you earn the ability to put the sticker on the door.
Well, we've got a video to show you that underscores exactly the Well Health Safety Seal and its importance. Take a look at this.
If you want to get back to your favorite places and feel confident they have put your health and safety first,
look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
I'm Dr. Richard Carmona, the 17th Surgeon General of the United States of America. This is the Well Health Safety Seal from the International Well Building Institute, the global authority on healthy buildings.
The Well Health Safety Rating was informed by years of research and input from hundreds of leading virologists, public health experts, epidemiologists, and building professionals around the world.
You'll see it at schools, offices, banks, childcare centers, all the places we go.
The Well Health Safety Seal means that we'll feel better going into restaurants,
theaters, stores, hotels,
stadiums, and all the places that we love.
Everything may look the same, but the Well Health Safety Seal means that your health and safety are top of mind when it comes to
cleaning and sanitizing procedures,
air and water quality management,
emergency preparedness programs,
and health services.
So look for the Well Health Safety Seal outside
and feel more confident going inside. Learn more about the Well Health Safety Rating at wellhealthsafety.com.
That sums it up. I'm going to be looking for that sign. I can't imagine that companies wouldn't engage in this, that buildings would just sort of skip over this part. We have to hold them accountable.
Due to the pandemic, the demand for these services is very high.
Yes.
And, once people know about it, then they can say, you know what, we've done a lot of things. We're the property management company. We've done a lot of things. But how do we communicate that? How do we know if we've done everything we can do? And having that third party verification is what's key. That's what's key.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the beginning step. So that's like the entry level beginning step of an awareness and things being put in place. And then you can go on from there and get the true well certified building, which goes into a deeper dive. But that's where we're going. That's what the immediate future and the foreseeable future looks like. Healthy buildings.
And so we've been talking about this for several months, over a year, really. We were talking about well health and safety, and people would look at us like we don't know what we're talking about. And in the last, was it 2 or 3 weeks, Sterling? Now that commercial now it's coming out and people and they're showing it and it's like, oh, now it's real.
Right.
But when you see that sign up there, what it should tell you, let's talk practicality. When you see that, it should tell you that the people that own that establishment are more serious about the health inside of that facility. You may not know everything that they did because it's like Sterling said, it's different points that you focus on based on your particular situation and circumstance. But at least you know they've taken an effort to make sure that that facility is well for you to enter and to interact. And that's what you want to be concerned about.
That's right.
That's good, to enter and interact. Excellent. And that's what we want to be mindful of. Well, I'm just glad that you brought to light today the sick building syndrome issue. Now, you wanted to have a little side chat about vaccine chasers. Tell us how that relates to sick building syndrome.
Well, here's one of the things that we gotta think about when we talk about vaccines. You gotta think about the word vaccine. When you are given a vaccine is given to you to cure you. When we talk about COVID-19 and you're taking that shot, that's not a vaccine. That's an inoculation.
Oh.
Think about what I'm just saying. It's an inoculation, because when you take that shot, it doesn't cure you from COVID. What it does is it minimizes your ability to get COVID. And it also helps to make sure you don't die from it. Now, you can still get COVID. You can still spread COVID with this inoculation. So when people keep talking about the COVID vaccine, it's not a vaccine, because if it was a vaccine, that means you would take it and you wouldn't get it anymore. So we have to think about the words that are being used and make sure they're being used properly, because what's happening now, people are taking this shot and they think they don't have to wear a mask.
It's true.
Okay. They think, I can't get COVID now. I just took my shot. Yes, you can.
Oh, yes, you can.
We have to wake up. We have to wake up to these. We have to wake up to these things. This is the reason that we don't have self-driving cars yet. The technology works. The car can do everything. But what'll happen? But here's what happens. Let's say when you fly on an airplane, that's what they're doing. They punch in the coordinates and the plane is flying automatically. People don't realize that. But the idea is, as soon as people know, like, wow, this technology is great, they'll stop paying attention to the machine. So if it works 99.9995% of the time, that other little smidge is when people aren't paying attention. They get all comfortable. They get lax. They say, I got a vaccine. So now everything is back to like it was. And now it's still problematic. And you didn't do what needed to be done. You didn't think about it properly. You just want an over-the-counter, pure magic thing. And it's not that. You still have to wear a mask. You still have to social distance. You still have to wash your hands. Look at AIDS. It is a pandemic. It's still there.
That's right. That's right.
It's still there. You know, MERS, the Middle Eastern respiratory, it's still out there. And then they flare up. And then, you know, hopefully you'll continue to tell people about the problem with antibiotics. So
we're going to have another conversation about that.
Right. We got a lot of things. We've got to be mindful. We just have to be mindful. Pretend you're on Mars and it's a different way of living.
That's right.
Well, gentlemen, I am so glad that you were here today to have this conversation. We have put up your email addresses, how to contact you. As always, this is just highly educational information that you should know to protect yourselves. So understand that there are dangers lurking in buildings where you live, eat, work, and worship, and the questions that should be asked before you re-enter. And join us next week with Dr. Tamara Combs Williams, who's going to talk all about toxicity in the homes and how to eradicate it. For now, though, open your windows when you clean, open your door when you clean, allow some air to circulate, put on a fan, do whatever it is you have to do to circulate. Now these green buildings, fellas, they're building them you can't open the windows. I could never live somewhere where you can't open the windows, but there's some beautiful swanky places. My cousin lives in one, but I couldn't believe she didn't have a window to open. Yeah. And I think that that's detrimental to the health. But, you know, on one hand, it's a green building, and then another way we're destroying the health in another way. So go figure. Fluorescent lights are good for the environment, but they're very dangerous for us. So we have to learn how to weigh it. This is why we should protect ourselves. So, gentlemen, Carl Tutt, I'm going to start calling you Doc. Carl Tutt. And Doc Sterling Laylock, thank you so much for being with us here, both from Integrating Green Technologies. I want to thank my team, IW Supervising Producer, Christopher Green, Technical Producer, Announcer Indy, DJ Indy, and the moderator, Black T. I want to thank all of you for helping to make this possible. And never forget, never ever forget to let your eyes shine, cut back on the wine, get good food fast, and go easy on the greasy. Until next time, I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, here to help you attain and maintain your perfect health. Let's do it again next week, okay? God bless you.
We have the power to heal. Our bodies have the power to do exactly what it was created to do. All we have to do is give it what it needs. You can't tell me that there is a community with more ingenuity and innovation and talent. Can't make me believe it. I know it. I've seen it.
Very, very challenging, but yet fun. I had a great time, as you can see. So this is a great workout for me. Awesome, Dr. LaJoyce.
Okay, Dr.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing.
See what can happen when people inspire you? Inspire someone you know.
Foundationally speaking, you really need to know your network. Because I mean, if you don't track it, then you don't know where you're at and where you'd like to be.
My entire life, I've seen what our generations have had to come down and go through and still have been able to make it. I don't believe that anybody else would have made it through what we've made.
You got one of the best person I know, folks that come to educate to the training. She teaches, she cares. Phenomenal folks.
Question, you've been listening to Dr. Brookshire, I'm sure you've heard a lot about detoxification.
There's really a water crisis out there, and a lot of people are not educated. A lot of people actually really dying from just drinking their local tap water.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out.
I was grateful when LaJoyce asked that I could come and talk to you guys. We've had one session. I don't believe I traumatized you guys too bad.
Dr. Brookshire, thank you so much for this weekend.